Welcome to Life Science Leaders, a series of webinars and podcasts for leaders within the life science industry. Throughout these series, I will be interviewing senior leaders across the sector covering topics that are relevant to what's happening in our industry and affecting businesses and the markets and people. Today, I will be speaking with Chris Stevenson, CEO of Cambridge Healthcare Research. Thank you, Chris, and welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Alyssa. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Chris Stevenson. I'm the CEO of Cambridge Healthcare Research. We're an organisation that provides insight into markets and market understanding for our clients who are primarily the pharmaceutical and medical device industries. We do sometimes do work for charities and governments as well, but our chief clients are pharmaceuticals and device companies. We're an 80-strong business, growing rapidly, and we put our growth down to really our ability to understand markets, not just to bring information together, but to answer the so what question, as we say, and to provide the implications of the information we gather to our clients and their business.
Yes, good. And obviously, at the moment, we're going through a global pandemic. And how have you found business in general?
I think, firstly, we've been very lucky with the industry that we work in. Hasn't been, to today anyway, significantly affected by the COVID crisis, at least from a financial point of view. So in that sense, we've done fine. However, we have two offices, one in Cambridge, one in London. We have people that work with us around the world, and there's been a significant impact there. Offices closed, of course, people working from home, challenges to them, both of a professional nature, but obviously all the personal challenges that people have faced during this difficult time as well. And as a business, we've tried real hard to support our people. And we've done a number of surveys of our staff. We've done all sorts of things, from parties in the park when they were available to online quizzes and round the world from your desk and all sorts of things to try and keep people engaged and positive about things. And we've had some very, very positive feedback about that. But nevertheless, in a recent survey, 50% of our staff said they're really struggling to switch off.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. And despite everything that we've tried, it is difficult for people. And we're providing what we can, everything from mindfulness to confidential phone lines. Well, I think, we're not atypical in the fact that we've done well working from home, but still people are suffering.
Yeah.
And it'll be good to get out of this, because a lot of us, whilst the quality of the work we do remains as high as it's ever been, and we have a great deal of trust in our staff to be able to work from home, a lot of us, most of us in the company, are missing the social aspects of work. On the one hand, it's the jokey banter, but on the other hand, it's really learning from each other, sharing more easily, not having to book an appointment to ask somebody a question, and all of that many, many of us are missing and really looking forward to. And just, if I may briefly, we won't go back to how it was as a company. We definitely won't go back to...
What does the future look like as an organisation?
I think it looks much more flexible for everybody. I think a lot more working from home. The offices will change to be sort of less workstations and more social spaces, and social spaces both from a professional point of view, so that teams can meet, because we tend to work in small teams that focus on a client. So those teams need to meet. They've missed meeting a great deal. Yeah. But also the social side of that coming together as well. So, a few more sofas and things like that to really change that office environment.
Yeah.
And we won't be asking people to be in the office 5 days a week anymore. I think what we've heard from our staff is maybe 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And, it's become very obvious to us that productivity is at least as good, if not better than it was. Our staff are working as hard as they ever did, and because they can't shut down, some of them more so. They're saving money on public transport and avoiding the trauma of public transport sometimes. So I think there's a lot of positive change that we can make for our working environment once we're allowed to do so and once it's safe to do so.
I agree. I think that's something that we've seen and identified throughout the whole of the industry itself, speaking with our clients, that things will change, that there's more flexibility. And it's funny because when I worked as internal talent acquisition for Johnson & Johnson, we were always trying to promote the flexible working, being able to have people working out of the office, to broadening talent scope, of identifying talent and bringing them into the company. So I think there's lots of change ahead, and good change at that, I think, and people are looking at it more holistically as well, in terms of how do we get the best out of people and support them, especially those that I'm very much somebody that likes to be around people in it, to be creative and bound ideas of people. So yeah, I totally agree in terms of getting people working together again. We're all missing that interaction, aren't we? If I have to look at these anymore, I might go insane.
We do miss that spontaneous interaction, as you say, very, very much so. And another thing we've learned is that some of the things we've put in place during the pandemic. So, for example, we've done a couple of mindfulness sessions. I think we're about to start some yoga sessions. We've always had the confidential phone line for mental health issues, but a number of other things as well. We're not going to stop doing those when people are back to the office and things are a little more normal, whatever that means. Those things are going to continue because our staff have said that's what they want, and they want them beyond the pandemic. So I think positive changes will occur. And I mean, I sincerely hope that it means we can serve our staff better. Yeah. They've served the business, worked so hard, maintained the high quality of work that we're so proud of. So if we can serve them better, then great.
Yes. Well, obviously today we're going to be talking about what evidence-based management is and how it adds value to customers. So, Chris, do you want to give us an overview of evidence-based management?
Yeah, sure. It's a topic I've spent some time thinking about over the last year or two. And what I mean about evidence-based management is really decision-making about the running of a business that's based on a study of the literature, reviewing what similar businesses do, looking at quantitative and qualitative data about businesses like yours, so that you can understand the sort of decision-making landscape, avoid historic failings. I mean, I've seen so many of those in my time in management consulting, where companies make the same mistake as another company made last year and a company made the year before. Managers should be avoiding those and making the best decisions they can, because as we all know, the answer to a question isn't usually so black and white that there's only one decision you can make. It's all grey, and you've got to choose the best decision. And working in life sciences as we do, I mean, it's an evidence-based industry. Clinical trials, market access, real-world data, it's all evidence-based. Yet, even in life sciences and healthcare, managers make decisions because it's what their gut tells them to do, because they thought they were born with a natural talent to be a manager, so they never have to refer to anything, or they just go with something that somebody else said. Surely what we should do as managers, if we take management as seriously and as professionally as we should, is we should step back and say, well, what have other people done? What does the literature say? What do the experts that study these things say about this stuff? And it's surprising that doesn't happen very often. And I mean, I've been in more meetings where people will quote Sun Tzu of 3,500 years ago about wargaming, but won't know anything about Peter Drucker, Michael Porter, John Cotter, Jim Collins, and all the people today who talk about what good management looks like and what we've learned about it. I mean, Sun Tzu's much less relevant than they are.
Is this something that you are incorporating into your organisation in terms of your senior leaders at the moment?
Yes, indeed. We regularly talk about people like, I suppose Michael Porter's my favorite because I'm all about marketing and stuff. But all the others I've just mentioned and others as well. Tom Peters is great. I mean, go visit Tom Peters' website and look at some of those presentations he makes about professional services firms and what makes them better and different. It's amazing stuff. So yeah, we do talk a lot about that. We do look at the literature. We've recently last week we shared a book on leadership from the Harvard Business Review, and we've shared other books. We use the 6 thinking hats as a way of thinking, as a way of protecting other people's ability to think and respecting their time and getting the best information out and on the table to discuss issues. We use various different techniques that have been established over some years, not just the 6 thinking hats, but we sometimes use transactional analysis and other things to understand relationships between ourselves and our clients, ourselves and ourselves, and many other things besides. So yes, we do that on perhaps a less formal basis than perhaps we should, but we do share a lot. We share with clients as well. So our clients sometimes ask us to think about future scenarios, and they'll often describe it as something like a war game. Let's do a war game. And our response to that is often, well, let's not do a war game, because if you look at what people like Michael Porter say, it's not really about a war game like Sun Tzu would have it of 3,500 years ago. It's really about what influences the market and changes the market. And so we share that type of sort of academic insight with our clients as well. And you know, your question about, so where's the value in that? I think there's a lot of value in it for the client, an awful lot of value for the client, both right at the interface with the client where we're advising them on what the experts are saying about the best ways of addressing their questions. But also there's value in it because if we make the right management decisions, the best informed management decisions, and organize our company correctly, and organize everybody in it correctly, so that we're as focused as we can be on answering the client's questions in as informed a way as possible, then we're going to give our clients a better output than if we weren't organized well, if we were too distracted with other things. So I think it's really important that we think about these management questions as opportunities to learn, sources of potential advantage, and that we really should be thinking about how do we make the best decision and where's the evidence for it.
So what does that look like?
Well, in our organization, I think it looks like, well, a few things. One is that when we make decisions, we make them in the light of the best possible information. We don't tend to knee-jerk on things. Now, obviously, some decisions are made quickly and without reference to literature or anything like that, of course. But all of our big decisions are dealt with in a very constructed, thoughtful process that is defined, enlightened by what we've read in the literature about how these decisions are made in the past, the types of things people need to consider. So if you looked at our company, you would see that when it comes to important decisions, big decisions, let's say, then there's a structure to what we do. It's not a group of people getting in a room and just saying, right, here's a question, what's the answer? There's a structure to it. 6 thinking hats is a good example of that type of structure that we might use. But we also look at what other experts have done and how they have described how decisions are made. And we follow that type of structure. The other thing you would see, I think, and this is actually more and more in our company now, is that we tend to involve more people. We do that because the process allows you to do that. You can have more people involved with a structured process, and people will be heard. They will be able to speak. They won't be talked down by others. And we find that really helps. It allows us to get different perspectives on issues. So instead of just a group of 3 or 4 senior people sitting together and making a decision, we're now expanding that to involve more people, more points of view, better decisions, more involvement with it, more buy-in to it in the end, more willingness to implement whatever it is we're agreeing to do. So I think you would see that in our company as well. And as we continue to develop, I think you'll also see more focus on the client, less focus on the internal, more efficiency internally, as we learn more and more about how we organize a company like ours to be focused on the client whilst providing all those things we need internally, the management information, the invoicing, and all those things that need to be done. So I think that's how you would recognize it inside of a company like ours.
And how would the client recognize it?
The client, I think, sometimes doesn't see it.
I was just about to say.
But the way we measure it, in a way, is that we're constantly asking our clients for feedback. And if I can generalize, the feedback we get from our clients is somewhat like it's the quality of the insight and the understanding of the market and the implications that we develop that go beyond those of our competitors. So, we access a lot of databases, so do our competitors. But it sounds like every now and again, a competitor of ours will just put the information from the databases and scrunch it all into some PowerPoint thing and send that to the client. And we don't do that. We're driven by quality. So quality drives the growth of the company. We're not really driven by numbers. We're driven by our ability to employ the best people to do the best work for our clients. And that's what they see. They see that, they give us that feedback, and we constantly listen to them to figure out how we can improve on that feedback. Now, why is that related to evidence-based management? Why isn't it just because we employ good people, great people? Well, we do employ great people, but if I've learned anything from my time in management consulting over the years, it is that everybody employs great people. Right. The first thing a CEO will say about their company is, we're successful because we have the best people. And I've seen enough of those companies, consulted with enough of them to know that they all employ good people. They all employ smart people, definitely. Right. They're all smart. So what is it about, say, my company that's different? And it's not that we employ smart people. They're all smart. It's that we go beyond that and we employ people with the right attitude. Yeah. So their attitude has to be aligned with this concept of quality and focus on the client. And so they are. And then I think it's a little bit about this evidence-based management, about how we train them, how we align them with the client, how they work with each other, how we're structured, and all of that. All those little, 1 or 2% pieces all go in to make the whole. And so if you asked us about what makes us special, we might say we employ smart people, because we do. With a couple of rare exceptions, of which I am one, almost everyone in the company has a PhD. Almost everyone has a PhD, and many of them have 2 PhDs.
There's a place for a PhD, and then there's a place for not a PhD, I would say.
Well, we can agree on that for sure. Yeah. But it's not about the fact that they're smart, although they are. It's because it's their attitude, right? Their attitude has seen our company through the lockdown. Their focus on quality has helped our company no end to do well through the lockdown. And they didn't learn that at university, if you ask me. They learned that it's just who they are.
I think it's really important, because when you're identifying talent for your organisation, you can have somebody with great technical experience, expertise, but if they don't have the right personality profiling and culture fit into your organisation, it will be extremely difficult for that individual to deliver what you need them to deliver moving forward. So when you're looking at the evidence-based management, are you incorporating that into your interview process when you bring these individuals in to understand whether they've got that mindset to be able to deliver that evidence-based management?
We do that more and more, I think. We're a relatively young company. We're only 7 years old. And as I mentioned at the start, we're about 80 odd people now, but only a year or so ago, we were 40 people. And I think we've learned a lot over the last couple of years about how we grow, how we maintain this, what's the word, culture that we have that's so intangible. We have a good set of values, we have a good vision and mission and all the things that go around that. And we've recently employed a head of HR who's really building out that function for us, so it's much more proactive. And I think to answer your question, Lisa, I think we're spending more time now looking for the attitude than we are for the technical abilities. We're less, what's the word, impressed now, probably not impressed, but technical ability in our company is really, really important. I mean, we're at the cutting edge of medical science. We've got to know about gene therapy and RNA therapy and CAR T, and we've got to know about all of that lot. And our team does know about all of that. But we spend more time now looking for the fit, the attitude, because we've realized that we can employ really, really smart people that don't fit with the way we think. And, in the end, we part company and we want to do that as few times as possible.
So how else do you build it into your culture? How else would you build, the evidence-based management piece and the value-add piece into your culture of your organisation?
That's a great question. I think slowly is probably the answer. We're not trying to force this down people's throats. We're not saying everyone's got to read the Harvard Business Review, though I do. I love it every month. I have my Harvard Business Review and my RHS magazine. They're my two magazines of the month. And I don't understand why more people don't read the HBR. It's just a rivetingly good read.
Is that in your spare time or is that during your working hours?
Well, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but working hours and spare time, they're sort of almost like the same thing. And someone said to me recently, they don't look at the work-life balance. They call it work-life Jenga, right? Where all the pieces are intermixed and all that. And I think that's quite a useful, for me anyway, it's quite a useful concept, is that one. So not to draw too many harsh lines between work and non-work. You can often do some good work in 10 minutes. So why not? If it's on your mind, why not do it? So, but back to the organization, how we build it into the culture. I think it's part of our values. It's part of what the leadership talks about all the time in terms of quality. So we want the highest quality of work that develops the right feedback from the client. We want to employ the highest quality of people. So we're investing a lot in training and development, whether that's people learning about strategy skills, whether it's learning about management skills and building their evidence base for management, all of those things. It's a part of our values, collaboration, teamwork, and I think, as I've already said, really, the key focus for the leadership is not on hitting numbers; it's on hitting quality. And I think we say that all the time, and of course that gets through. It does get through, and you hear people in the company saying that and recognizing that. So I think that's how it gets through. We do share a lot of books. We do. I mean, we've certainly in my 9 or 10 months as the CEO of the company. I'm just looking. I've got books in front of me here. I'm looking at. We've certainly sent 3 at least books. I've recommended another 2 for people to read. So yeah, we do a lot of that studying.
I guess you can get the evidence in a series of ways, can't you? organisation data, scientific literature, practitioners, you've got your stakeholders that are able to provide data. So it's an overall information sharing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really good point, Lisa, because we can learn from our colleagues. Mm-hmm. They've all got experiences. They've all, had worked at other places, maybe in other situations, and learned things. And we should always listen to that. Mm-hmm. We should listen to the academics, all the people I mentioned earlier on, and what they write about. They absolutely know what they're talking about, and they're very, very well worth listening to. They have tremendously good advice. But we can also learn from, I've learned from my next door neighbor who has his own business. I've learned from, different types of books. So one recently was the story of Shackleton and his ill-fated journey to get to the South Pole with his ship, the Endurance, and they spent a year on the ice, trapped on the ice, eventually lost the ship. And for over a year, they were stranded on the ice. They ate seal and penguin, and every man survived. They made some incredible feats of human endurance, navigation. He navigated across 800 miles of the most difficult ocean in the world, in the South Atlantic, to get to South Georgia, a tiny little island in the middle there. And reading about that, you'll learn some very important lessons of management. I mean, what did Shackleton do? He set some very simple goals. We will not lose a man. Everyone will have a worthwhile job to do. And so they organized themselves around that. And he instilled that in all of them, so that in 1914 it was, I forget how many there were. I think it was 36 men survived. Incredible, really. And lessons to be learned from him and many others besides.
Indeed. And obviously, we can naturally fall into going from gut instinct, previous experiences, in making decisions. It can be a natural trait to fall into that. How do we stop ourselves from naturally falling into that form of decision making? We have making a conscious effort to say, this is how I'm going to make my decisions moving forward, and these are the processes that I'm going to ensure that I've done, ticked off before I make that decision. Obviously, it can probably be a little bit longer in terms of timings as well.
That's another great question, Lisa. I think there's a few things to think about there. One is that you don't necessarily want to not say what your instinct feels. I think you can absolutely go with that. But you should perhaps then just step back and say, that's what my instinct's telling me. Now let's just think about it again. Let's get a few other people to input to this. I may be right, but there may be just a better way that I haven't thought about. So have that humility and involve other people. I personally believe very strongly in having a structure to how you make decisions. Mm-hmm. Again, it's what the experts say, because we can't think about all of the things we need to think about all at once. It gets all jumbled up. We need to think about it in an organized fashion. It doesn't get rid of spontaneity. It helps spontaneity in many ways. So go with your gut, go with your instinct, but then just check. Have that humility to say, perhaps I might be wrong. Perhaps there may be a better way. And involve other people. I think that's one of the great values of this type of thinking, is that you involve others, and they always have something helpful to contribute. A question here, a comment there, an experience. It all helps to, grow the quality of your decision making by just a few percentage points. That's all it takes. Yeah. And it'll make a difference.
And Chris, has this been your way of making decisions forever, or how?
No, absolutely not.
How was the transition for you in terms of going from previous decision making to this type of decision making?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Lisa. It's quite an important thing for me, actually, that, I was a sales manager for a long time, and just felt like I was good at it. Right, I was just, I was good at it. I was sort of born to do it, and I was good at it. But to cut a long story short, I ended up in a situation where I was in the United States working for the Thomson Corporation and running 3 distressed businesses for the Thomson Corporation. And it required some very, very important decision making that affected a lot of people's lives. So we were looking at changing management structure, getting rid of some senior people, perhaps making other people redundant, and all that lot. And I felt the weight of those decisions upon me. And I remember sitting with the head of HR at the time and the head of finance at the time and saying, you know what, we better make these decisions right. We need to look into this. And so at that moment, I said, we're not going to make a decision now for a week. I'm going to go study this. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I went off and studied it, came back with some fresh ideas, how to implement change, for example.
Yeah.
And we did that a lot better than we would have done. And I realized then that even if I am naturally good at it, even if there is such a thing as that, and there probably is, you can still improve. Yeah. You can still learn. It's why the best soccer players in the world train. It's why the best sports people in any sport train, because they know they're good at it, but they can get better. And so that was the realization I had then, which was about, oh goodness me, that was probably 13, 14 years ago now. Since then, and especially spending time in management consulting, I think it's been an enormous help to me. It's made me a much better manager, a much better decision maker, a much better at, I think, involving other people, recognizing that decisions can be joint and you can still take responsibility for them, and many other things besides. I think it's enriched my career. I think it's made me better at what I do, and I heartily recommend it.
Is this something that you incorporated into Cambridge when you joined, or is it something that was already existing that you've enhanced?
I think in many ways it's something that I've brought to Cambridge Healthcare Research, because, as I mentioned earlier on, we're a smallish company, and when I joined back in April of last year, we were just about 40 people. And I think that transition, and as I've looked at many professional services companies, there's a point, and it's around about that 45, 50, 55 people mark, where the organization has to go through a transition. The owner or owners can no longer manage everything. It's too big. They can't know everybody. There's too many of them. They need processes. They need organization. And that was when I joined the company. So I think it was just a natural time for us to implement these organizational changes, decision-making changes. So I think I've brought it to Cambridge Healthcare Research. But that said, it's an evidence-based company. Everything we do is evidence-based. Everything we talk about is evidence-based. And so as a company, we're just right for this stuff. And the company was ready for it as well.
Fabulous. So Chris, you mentioned a lot about quality as we spoke. So why is quality so important to you?
Well, quality it runs through everything that we do. Everything. And how we measure quality is in the feedback from our clients that we ask for all the time. And it's also in the feedback we give ourselves as well, and how we orient ourselves around quality. So I think it's important to us for a few reasons. One is, we believe it's what our clients deserve. And so it's good for our business if we can deliver on that. Secondly, it's who we employ. The people we employ and work with want to do the best work. And so it's a product of who we employ and why we employ them. And thirdly, we've looked at our industry And we believe strategically that there's a place for us as a high quality provider. And, speaking of evidence-based management, Michael Porter and his sources of competitive advantage, we want to be that high value, high price provider of services. We don't want to fight about cost. And we don't. We don't want to be in what he describes as a muddled middle with other organizations. We don't want to be there.
Yeah.
We are high value, high cost. So if we don't maintain that quality and that value perception amongst our clients, then we lose our position in the market. And so that's really, really important to us. So that's why we talk about quality all the time. And we're going through processes at the moment, actually, and certainly by mid to late 2021, we'll have defined what we mean in more detail for everyone in the company about what quality looks like, how we measure it, how we, do quality assurance and various other things besides, how we develop people and support people in understanding what quality looks like, how we onboard people, as they say. I hate that phrase, onboarding. How we onboard people in a way that orients them immediately around our desire for the highest quality of work.
That's all we have time for today. I would like to say a huge thank you, Chris, for your time and for your insightful information around the evidence-based management and how that adds value to customers as well, and obviously organisations. If anybody has any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next podcast.